History remembers the great. But what about the secrets it chose to forget? This is Arcana, uncovering history. In 1982, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict began spreading into Lebanon. The country was already trapped in a civil war, while the PLO maintained armed forces and bases there. A 1981 ceasefire had reduced cross-border fighting, but tensions remained high. On June 3, 1982, Israel's ambassador to Britain, Shlomo Argov, was shot by members of the Abu Nidal organization, which opposed the PLO. 3 days later, Israel invaded Lebanon. The conflict had Lebanon was already fractured before Israel's invasion. Since 1975, a brutal civil war had divided Lebanese factions, while the PLO maintained armed forces inside the country. Syria also intervened militarily, adding another layer to the conflict. When Israel entered Lebanon in 1982, it was therefore moving into a battlefield filled with competing forces and alliances. The invasion quickly became more than a confrontation with the PLO. Beirut itself would soon become the center of the crisis. As Israeli forces advanced deeper into Lebanon, Beirut became the critical center of the confrontation. The city was already divided by Lebanon's civil war, and the PLO had established its political and military presence there. By the summer of 1982, Israeli forces surrounded West Beirut, where PLO fighters were concentrated. The siege transformed the conflict from a cross-border confrontation into a major international crisis. The question was no longer simply why Israel entered Lebanon, but how the war would end. By the summer of 1982, Israeli forces had reached Beirut, where the PLO was concentrated in the western part of the city. The siege turned Lebanon's capital into the center of an international crisis. Diplomatic pressure grew for a political solution, eventually leading to the evacuation of PLO fighters from Beirut. But removing the PLO did not solve Lebanon's deeper crisis. Foreign forces remained involved, political tensions continued, and the invasion's consequences were far from over. The conflict spread because Lebanon was already divided. The PLO operated there, and Israel saw the threat as increasingly dangerous. In 1982, invasion turned an existing Lebanese crisis into a wider regional war, with consequences that continued long after the fighting.